The opinions expressed on this show do not necessarily reflect the views of the Tampa Bay Arts and Education Network.
Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of Connecting with Kim here on Tampa Bay Arts and Education Network, and I'm your host, Kim Droege. We're so glad you joined us today because we have another great show coming up. And before we get started, and before I introduce my awesome guest, I want you to follow our Instagram, Facebook, and X accounts, where you'll find all the information about the show, about the guest, about the topic, and of course my on-air wardrobe that comes from the Spring of Tampa Bay Boutique, located at 4415 West Osborne here in Tampa. The net proceeds from the boutique and the thrift store support their mission of providing safe spaces and empowering services for survivors of domestic violence and their children. And as you can tell from every week on the show, I always find the best stuff. Jewelry, earrings, clothing, shoes, everything. So I want you to shop there and support their mission because they've been doing a great job for more than 40 years. The other thing I want to remind you is Connecting with Kim on Sun Radio is broadcasting at a new time. So we will now be broadcasting on Saturday mornings at 9 o'clock following the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. So you're going to want to tune in on Saturday mornings now on Sun Radio, 96.3 FM, and on your favorite streaming platform. So I'm so excited about our guest today. I've been planning this for a long time, and I'm very, very proud that she could join us today. So my guest today on the show is Rebecca Bacon, who is the Executive Director of the Children's Board of Hillsborough County. Welcome to the show, Rebecca.
Thank you. I'm very honored to be here and have a conversation with you and share all of the exciting things that we're doing at the Children's Board.
As I told you, I pass it all the time on Palm Avenue as I'm heading to another thing that we do together. And so I've always, I know a lot about it because of your website and acquainting myself with the organization, but we always start the same way on Connecting with Kim. We love our guests to share a little bit about their life journey because, as I say to everyone, you never know when somebody out there listening is either from the same place you are, went to the same school you did, has the same degree you do, or whatever the case may be. So we want to encourage them to listen to the rest of what we're going to talk about.
Well, I actually grew up in Michigan. So
we're both Midwesterners.
Yes, which is a wonderful place to be, very friendly. I think that's part of what gives me my nature, is growing up in the Midwest. I have a father who was a psychology professor and a mother who got very involved civically in lots of different roles in our hometown. I got a degree in psychology. Always knew, I think, that I wanted to work with children, and originally wanted to be a clinical psychologist, but just life got in the way, but I've had this wonderful career in children's services, so I've definitely followed my path.
What brought you to Tampa?
My first husband brought me down to Florida.
Okay.
And he wanted to be near family, so that's how I got here, and of course fell in love with the weather, and just settled here and had a child and started my career. Yeah,
and
so
a career.
Really right after college came down, and so my whole professional career has been in Florida, and I've been in the Tampa area since about 95. So.
Okay, well, you're almost a native then.
Yes, I've been here longer than I've been up in Michigan. So.
Well, I tell everybody, I've been coming, my parents and I have been coming to Florida since I was 4 years old, so I pretty much, regularly, so I pretty much feel like, I'm a Floridian until I finally moved here somewhat permanently in 2005. So, It's a good thing. I'm so glad. But both being from the Midwest, I understand that. Midwesterners they're just so, open. I thought we should start at the beginning because I bet there's a lot of people out there that probably pass your locations like I do and think to themselves, what does the Children's Board of Hillsborough County actually do? So Why don't we start there?
The Children's Board is really a special organization. We are known as the Children's Services Council, and there are 13 around the state of Florida. And we were actually created by the voters back in 1988. There's legislation that allows for a special taxing district to leverage property taxes to support children's services. So that's what the voters in Hillsborough decided more than 35 years ago. So
Wow.
we've been in existence since 1989. We've grown. I think for many years people didn't know who the Children's Board was. I think we're getting more name recognition, but we are a major children's services funder in Hillsborough County. And we fund many, many nonprofits throughout the county to support children and families.
Let's talk about what those entities are that you fund and what they do, because that would be the next logical step. Okay, since 1989, how long have you been with the Children's Board?
I've been with the Children's Board since 2007.
Okay.
So I came in as a team member and worked there for many years, and then I've been in the executive director role about 2 years.
Oh, congratulations.
So kind of worked my
Worked
way
your way up, right?
I did a lot of direct service work early in my career, so I did a lot of home visiting with children and families and program development, and so got my feet wet there, but I really enjoy the administrative portion. So we are funding several nonprofits in the community that work with a variety of children's issues, starting with pregnant women. And much of our work is in early childhood, but it actually goes through middle school, and we just, with planning with our board, decided to expand to teens because of the tremendous needs. Our nonprofits provide a variety of services in the community to engage with children and families.
Okay, so name me some of these nonprofits.
Metropolitan Ministries, Children's Home Network, the Spring of Tampa Bay, which you mentioned. Those are some of the larger, well-known. We also have smaller nonprofits that are more kind of geographic or community-based. Some like Rooted in Play, which people would know about. We have the Family Enrichment Center, again, more geographic-based. So many, many nonprofits. I would say probably close to 70 different agencies.
Here in Hillsborough County?
Correct. And we fund close to 100 programs from a continuation basis, and then some other one-time grants. So, and our focus is really early intervention and prevention. So our goal is to support people and provide the resources to have safe and healthy childhood so that people don't need more involved services later.
It makes sense that you start with pregnancy because, I mean, a lot of what's going to happen afterwards is while that child is still in the womb. And the healthier that environment is in the womb,
Yes.
and then immediately when the child is born, the healthier that environment is, the better the outcome's going to be, right, as we go through. Let's get specific, because I think people would want to know, okay, what services do they provide?
Sure. So one of our really important services is our family resource centers. And we have 7 of those throughout Hillsborough County, and they are branded with the Children's Board name. And those are universal supports that any family can participate in. And they can actually join and get a membership at no cost and participate in everything from developmental playgroups to information and referral, classes, child safety activities, tutoring for kids. They're just really warm and friendly spaces for families to connect with formal services, but also with each other. So that's, I think, one of our most remarkable, and many families are familiar with those resource centers.
These 7 centers, are they all throughout Hillsborough County?
They are. They are. So we certainly have one in Central Tampa at our main building. We also are in Ruskin, Plant City, Town and Country, Temple Terrace, North Tampa, Brandon. So
Good to know.
nice and spread out so that it's much more community based.
Do all of these locations say Children's Board?
They do.
Okay, good.
They do. They're branded with a
Yeah,
logo.
I like your logo, so that's why I know.
Yes. It's very light and happy.
Yeah,
and
it is.
Focused on
It
children.
is.
So
It's very welcoming and warm.
and that's a good place to start. The other thing is for people to get familiar with our services, we have this wonderful family guide, which is on our website. And also it's available in these booklets, which we hand out throughout the community. And it lists all of the programs that we fund, how to get in touch with them, what their focus is. But we have everything from Learn and Play for little ones, that's through Glazier Children's Museum, and that's a way for families to come together, participate in a developmental play group, connect with other families, and they actually get a membership for 1 year to the Children's Museum after they participate in that program. And some of those activities are really important. We want to be able to support parents through things like developmental screenings so that they can identify if there's any challenges with children meeting developmental milestones early so that we can get them intervention. What we know about young children is that the first 5 years are the most critical. 90% of brain development occurs during that time. So that's where we have a lot of intensive resources, programs that are home visiting programs that go into the home, help teach parents how to be their child's first teacher, things like the HIPPY program through USF, or Parents as Teachers through Champions for Children. So many programs for that early time.
That whole, from birth to kindergarten, right?
Right.
That is so critical, because most people do not realize after 5 years you're only dealing with 10% of the brain development.
Right.
That's all you're going to affect through all that schooling. And it's important. I don't want to minimize that, but the focus on having children ready for kindergarten and then to progress through school, critical.
And what we know right now is that only about half of the children in Hillsborough County are actually ready for kindergarten based on the testing that they do.
I know.
And then we have some of those same numbers that show up at the third grade reading. And we also know that it's critical that children read by third grade, that they've learned to read, and that so then they can read to learn as they go throughout their school year. So very critical points. So we also have some school-based programs that if the schools or families identify that kids are having challenges in school, we have a program through Children's Home Network called the SEEDS program, and they do case management and they help connect families with resources, educational resources, tutoring. So a nice supplement if you have situations where kids are having challenges. So again, the point is to intervene early. So that we can really improve the trajectory of those children's lives.
I emphasize this all the time when I talk about early childhood, or when I'm having somebody on the show that is concerned with this, is that, yes, by third grade, you have to learn to read, because after that, you are reading to learn. And you just have to keep hammering that home all the time, right? One of the most rewarding things I ever did in one of my former lives is I've always been very active in my parish, and one of the things my priest asked me to do, my father asked me to do, was tutor at the school. And I'd never done anything like that before, but I thought, okay. So I'm a very adventuresome person, and so I tutored a young girl in parochial school, and this is when it was still run by the nuns and all that. And I tutored her in reading, because she was in the first grade, and it was one of the most. I was devastated when they pulled her out of parochial school because they could no longer afford the tuition, and I offered to pay it for them, because I was like, this child needs to stay where she is, and I want to keep helping her. But it was one of the most. I learned a lot through that, and it was one of the most rewarding experiences I ever had.
That's wonderful, and I think the more people we have in our community that are willing to lend a hand, it really. I think that saying, "It takes a village to raise a child," is it's true.
It is true.
And families, I think if you think about the fact that we're both from other areas and we moved to this area, that's true for a lot of families. So they may not have natural supports, extended family around, military families. We want to make sure that we provide community for families. And so we have lots of services for kids, but also for parents. Parents need a ton of support. So making sure that we have services that can help reduce their strain. A lot of our programs actually help with some of the basic needs issues. If you've looked at any of the United Way data, about half or just under half of the families in Hillsborough County are either under the poverty level or what they consider ALICE, which is assets, limited, income constrained, and employed. So they're working. They're working, but they don't have enough resources.
They're what we call the working poor. They're kind of living paycheck to paycheck.
And that's broadening.
Yeah, it's broadening.
And I think it's important. These are people that are trying very hard.
Trying very hard.
And so we want to make sure that they have enough support and resources. And I think one of the most heartwarming stories I received recently is we received an email from a family who just contacted us directly, even though we're not a service provider.
Right.
But her story was that she was in nursing school full time. She was 2 weeks away from walking across the stage to get her diploma. 3 children, single parent, and she was about to lose her housing. So we connected her with Dawning Family Services, who was able to work with her, stabilize her housing. A few weeks later, we received an email from her saying, "Thank you so much. This was life-changing. We received the services. just when we needed them. I got a job as a nurse at one of the schools in Hillsborough County,
Yeah.
and we're stable now.
Oh.
Like, that's the kind of stuff that
Keeps you going,
it
right?
keeps me going, because this is, not always easy work. I think there are plenty of
Well, it's
challenges.
heart-wrenching. Many times heart-wrenching, right?
It is. And I think this was a parent that was working very hard, and
I'm so glad you shared that story.
Yeah.
If you're just joining me now and connecting with Kim, my guest in the chair is Rebecca Bacon, who is the Executive Director of the Children's Board of Hillsborough County. And we're talking about the numerous organizations that they work with and they fund to, from pregnant women on through, we'll talk about this in a few minutes, which is going to be teens now too. But the most important thing is helping families, helping children, and intervening early in the process so that we identify problems and we have a chance to fix them. That's right. I had an interesting experience a couple weeks ago. I was returning clothes to this spring from wearing on and then picking out new ones. And this wonderful woman came in and she was picking up supplies for her family. And Pat was there. And one of the things the lady said is, she said, there's no baby wipes. And Kat was explaining to her why they weren't included anymore. And I'm standing there and I'm thinking to myself, okay, I can do that. So every time I go to the spring, and I'm there a lot, I take boxes of baby wipes with me, because my feeling was, as I was standing there listening to that story, well, if we don't have a way to keep the baby clean, now we're going to have even more problems after that. So I don't know whose idea that was not to supply them, but I can do my bit and I'm happy to do it.
Sure. I think there's tremendous need. I mean, if you look at the cost of everything.
Yeah, Costco's loving me now. Lucky enough.
Yes, and those families are probably really appreciative to have that. And
it seems so simple, but it just wrenched at my heart when standing there listening to her. Okay, so we've talked about pregnant, young children, families, the kind of programs that you offer and intervene, in my opinion, in services.
Sure.
So you mentioned teens at the start. So tell me about that.
We're really excited about the opportunity to be able to expand. And I think, one of the concerns when we had less funding available is we wanted to make sure we had the biggest return on investment. And that's why that focus in early childhood. Mm-hmm. We're in a position where we have the resources to be able to expand, and it's something that got prioritized by our board. Mm-hmm. We have a 10-member board that governs the Children's Board. I think there's not enough resources out there for teens, and we want to make sure that they have services to help with prevention as well. So one of the first things we're funding is the Youth Council, so we can get the youth voice about what their priorities are. I think that's really important. One of the things that we did over the summer is we funded some summer camp slots, and one of the programs actually served teens, and it was an after-hours camp at the Skills Center. So evening, which is a time where a lot of times kids can get in trouble, right? Young people can get in trouble. So this was
particularly if there's no one at home.
That's right. So this was a way to get these kids engaged in positive activities, sports, technology, other things, and keep them off the streets.
Yeah.
And so that creates a safer community and neighborhood. It not only helps those children and families, but it creates a safer community for us, because you don't have kids out there getting into trouble. And I actually heard anecdotally in this part of the county where this program was that there were less problems over the summer. So that's the kind of impact we can have as kids get older. I mean, just because kids are in middle school and high school doesn't mean they don't have needs for support.
Oh, of course not. I mean, I think children have needs throughout their entire life. It's just a question of it changes over time, and are you adept and attuned to what those needs are, and is somebody meeting them? Because those, to me, the start of middle school forward is really tricky territory.
It is.
I don't envy any parent navigating that terrain, because it's difficult. And so many, you and I both know, so much is coming through this, right?
Yes.
And you can't control everything that's coming through that. So that's wonderful. I'm just going to ask this because that's the kind of girl I am. Is it also looking at, preventing pregnancy and preventing things like that too, so that they don't fall into a trap?
We don't have anything that specifically focuses on that right now, but I think providing information and access to to health services. One of the programs that we fund is called Connecting Kids to Care, and it helps connect people who don't have insurance through the Family Healthcare Foundation, and that's available through our resource centers. And that's a great strategy to make sure that people are getting the health care and health information that they need.
Right.
Some of the things that we do through the resource centers also for teens is a safe sitter course. So for young people that want to learn to be a babysitter.
Right.
We also have things like CPR and first aid. But I'm glad you brought up the phone, because I think that's a critical point. I think there are concerns with our young people because of social media and all the time spent connecting to a device as opposed to connecting to people. So I think the more we can do to encourage the interpersonal skills and things like exercise are going to serve them well, and again, prevent any of those problems that we can see.
Nothing makes me sadder, I don't know about you, but nothing makes me sadder when I go into a restaurant and I see a family sitting there and everybody's head and face is buried in that phone. And they're all four sitting there, or five, or whatever the number is, the mom and the dad and the kids, and everybody's on their phone and nobody's talking to each other. It breaks my heart, because when I grew up, my parents worked, so I don't want anybody to think that, I was a latchkey kid.
Sure.
That family time, when my parents got home from work and we had dinner, we talked about everything. And they weren't always, it wasn't always light and fluffy.
No, I know. I have a 31-year-old son, and then I have 13-year-old teen boys, so I very familiar with raising kids and the challenges with teens, and I think it's different. I mean, I notice a difference from the experience I had raising my older son and my twins.
Sure.
Because it is a different world.
Different world.
And we do have to, in some ways, get back to the basics about what's important for establishing some of the family connectedness and the interpersonal interactions. I mean, that starts at home. Whatever we can do, I think some of our programs also work on some of those just skill building with families to help with the interaction and self-esteem building and ways to deal with stress. Those are some of the other things that we see. And that's one of the outcomes that we measure. One of the things I want to make sure I mention is that all of the work that we do through our funded programs is measured through an evaluation process, and we use something called results-based accountability. So we're not just measuring how many people that we served or how well we did it, but what difference it makes. So we have outcomes that are established for each of our programs, and in 2024, when we had an annual report, 84% of those outcomes were met among our funded providers.
Look at this, everybody. She brought me a nice annual report. Who are you reporting back to these results? That's the next thing I want to know.
Yes, certainly our board. And we have 5 gubernatorial appointees appointed by the governor, and then 5 that are in the role because of their position, people like the superintendent, and someone from the Department of Children and Families, and judge. So we report to a board, so there's great oversight there. We also report to the community, and I think it's really important for the community to know what difference we're making in the lives of children and families.
Absolutely, because right now, and this is going to be one, we're going to have to cover it, because you said you were funded by property taxes.
Correct.
And there is so much discussion right now about property taxes and who's getting it and should we pay it, and so do you have some concerns at this point?
I do have concerns, and certainly I understand the issue, because lots of people are struggling with the cost, rising costs of everything.
The cost of everything in Florida.
And so I think what I would say is, yes, we do leverage property taxes, but they're actually a very small portion.
Are they we all just got our tax bills, right?
Yes.
So it's a line item on our tax bill,
Correct.
right? Okay, good.
And I know I looked at mine, and it was a pretty small amount, and I think on average it's $80 a year that goes to the Children's Board.
Right.
And one of my colleagues said, that's actually less than the amount of a streaming service that you forgot you had.
Exactly.
So for that amount of money, for each person to really be investing in making this a better community to raise children and families, and a safer community for all of us, it's worth it. And I think what I would also say is that we are highly accountable. We are and very transparent about how we use the funds. And as I say, we monitor programs closely. We have a competitive process to ensure that we're funding organizations that can do the work and make the difference in people's lives. So I understand the concern about property taxes. I think we'll have to see what happens, and watch, but I think it's important for us to help educate people. I think a lot of people probably don't even know that.
Well, that's why we do. That's why we do this, because
right.
I'm thinking, I bet there's people out there who don't even. I mean, they see it. They might see it on their tax bill, but they sit there and think, well, what is that?
Correct.
You know, and so the more information we can share with them about what the Children's Board of Hillsborough County actually does, and where they do it, and who they do it with, the better, right? And the fact that you have this accountability, and I love the fact that there's. So do you ever have to go to Tally and report anything, or is everything more local?
More local, and we report to Hillsborough County. So we send our budget to Hillsborough County, and so there's some level of oversight at the county level. And we work very closely with the county, and we partner on things, which is excellent. I mean, I think that's one of the other things that's very important for us, to collaborate with each other. We collaborate closely with the nonprofits and other systems. Certainly the school district, they're a huge partner for us.
Right.
The county, the Early Learning Coalition.
Yes.
Those partners are critical, and it's important for us to work together to avoid any duplication and to help fill in the gaps. That's one of the nice things about the Children's Board, is we can fill in the gaps and help pick up some of the things that are funded by other systems.
Yeah, I try to cover as much as I can. It goes so fast. We're almost out of time. But I want to thank you, Rebecca, for being my guest today on Connecting with Kim and sharing this great information about the Children's Board of Hillsborough. If you're just joining Connecting with Kim now, you have to go back and watch the entire episode, because my guest in the chair was Rebecca Bacon, who is the Executive Director of the Children's Board of Hillsborough County, who is doing great work that actually it helps all of us. And it is a line item on your property tax bill, but I agree with you. It's you waste more than that coffee at Starbucks every year. Thank you so much again. We're running out of time for Connecting with Kim, but want to thank you for joining us today here on Tampa Bay Arts and Education Network. I'm your host, Kim Droege, and I want to thank my sponsor, the Spring of Tampa Bay, who provides my on-air wardrobe for this show, and they do a great job, and the net proceeds support their mission of safe spaces and empowering services for survivors of domestic violence and their children. So I would ask that you support them. Don't forget to like, follow, and our Instagram, Facebook, and X account, where you will find out all the information about the show, about the guest, about the topic, and of course the wardrobe. So that's all we have time for today. Come back next week for another great episode of Connecting with Kim. Thank you.